On this video, I would like to continue the commentary that I have been working on or commenting through the book of Job, and we're at chapter 15. And we're looking at Eliphaz's second speech, and thus far we have seen how he is attacking Job for what he feels to be Job's arrogance in declaring his innocency. We look at so far, we've seen how he is going after Job is being reproved for being irreligious and for his presumptuous irreverence. And that brings us up to verse 17. And from 17 to 35, during this section, Eliphaz informs Job that disaster and destruction overtake the wicked, assuming Job is wicked. This is not a new doctrine, he writes, or he says, but comes from the unadulterated tradition of the fathers. And so we begin with verse 17 and 18, picking up where we left off. And I'll be doing a grammatical analysis as well as a commentary. Let me just say a few words, though, about the vocabulary of this section. So beginning in 17, we have hava, which means to declare, kahad, to conceal. Then we have the hul in a participle, which means to suffer torture or writhing in pain. Then tzafan, to store up. Aritz, ruthless or tear. Pachad, dread or tear. Mani is really the same as min, except in poetry. Tsafa means to look out, to spy out. And then Ali or Ale is a poetic term for El, and Nadad means to wonder, and Aye means where. Ba'at means to terrify. Tsar would be distress, and Metsuka would be stress or straits, and Takaf is to overcome, overpower, and Atid means ready or being prepared, and Kidor has the idea of onset. So those are some of the vocabulary. Let me just now begin to read the text and talk through some of the passages looking at the grammar. And so we begin. Ahavcha Shemali, I will tell you, hear me. Ahavcha is from chava, to tell or declare. It's a PL imperfect first person singular followed by the pronominal suffix second masculine singular in the cha. So I will tell you, hear me. Shema is the cow imperative masculine singular. So hear to me or hear me. V'zeh chaziti ve'asapera. Asapera. That is, and this I have seen, and I will declare, or let me declare. Chaziti is from chaza, to see. It's the cow perfect, first common singular from chaza, and I will declare. Asa pera is from the root safar. It is a PL, uh, first person singular from sapar. Let me declare, like a PL Jessup. So that which I have seen, let me declare, or I will declare. And then he's going to appeal to the wise men of old. Asher Chachamim Yagidu, Velo Yichadu Me Avotam, which wise men have declared from their fathers, that is, and have not hidden it. In other words, they have not hidden it, and it's declared from what they have received from their fathers. Yagidu is a Peinun verb from Nagad. It's a Hifil imperfect third masculine singular from Yagad. Yangidu becoming Yagidu. So a Hifil imperative, a third masculine plural from Nagad. So that which wise men they have cause to declare, and they have not hidden. Kahadu is the cow perfect, third person common plural from kahad, to hide. They have not hidden it from their fathers. So what Job is saying here, or the author of Job, as he's quoting Eliphaz is inviting Job to listen to what he has seen. Eliphaz prefaces his forthcoming remarks with the fact that what he is about to teach Job has been told by wise men, reaching back even into the distant past. So his appeal is to tradition. This is what he's appealing to. And we know, Job, from tradition, that what we are telling you is correct, and that what you are saying in defense of your innocency is not correct. And so we move on then to verse 19. Lahem levadam nitana haaretz, and to them alone is given the land. Notice nitana is from Natan. It's the nifal, third feminine plural from Natan, nifal perfect. So the land is given to them alone, levadam, and that not a stranger having passed among them. Notice below avar zar bitocham. Avar is the cow perfect third masculine singular from avar, not that one who is passing through. Zar is a cow participle masculine singular from zor, not one passing through in their midst. And so what he's saying here is, to whom alone, that is to the fathers. The tradition of Eliphaz is pure, unadulterated wisdom coming from the forefathers of his own tribe of Teman, and not from any foreign or alien tribe or race. And so what I am presenting is sound wisdom and is the truth, Eliphaz is arguing. And so in verse 20, Ko yemei rasha hu mitholel. As for the days of the wicked, he travails in pain or writhes in pain. The root here is whole. It's a hitpael or hitpolel participle, masculine singular from hul. And so the days of the wicked uh, travails, the wicked man, the days of the wicked man, he is travailing in pain. Really, all of his days are in pain. Umispar shanim nitz panu la aretz. That is, la aritz, I should say. That is, even the number of the years are laid up for the aritz, not aretz, but aritz, for the oppressor. The number of years, notice mispar is in construct with shanim. The number of years are laid up from safan. We have a nifal perfect, third common plural from safan. So the number of years are laid up for the oppressor, the one who is going to be evil and oppressing others. And so in verse 20, throughout his life, that is, throughout one's life, while the wicked man may seem to prosper, he really is inwardly tormented by the uncertainty of momentary misfortunes which may overtake him. And we see another similar thought in Job, actually, as we move on in verses 21 and following. This may be an effort to answer Job's argument that the tents of robbers prosper in 12:6. They may appear to prosper, but inside, the one who is wicked is not going to prosper. And so in verse 21, he continues, Kol pechadim ve'oznav. The sound of tears are in his ears. Kol pachadim, here we have two nouns in construct. The sound of tears are understood in oznav, in his ears. Preposition be, followed by ozen, here in the plural, with the pronominal suffix third masculine singular. So the sound of tears is in his ears, or in his ears. Vashalom shoded yevo enu. Notice here, yevo anu, I should say, in prosperity, the destroyer will come upon him in his prosperity. Notice here, shoded is the cow participle masculine singular from shaddad, to destroy, and then will come upon. Bo is the stem. It's the cow imperfect, third masculine singular, followed by the pronominal suffix in the hu, where the hey, by reverse assimilation, has gone back into the noon. And the on here is just sort of a helping phrase here, or ain, I should say. Sometimes the Hebrew pointing is very hard to read. So what he's saying here, in prosperity, the destroyer shall come upon him. So what he's saying is, even in prosperous times, his fear does not leave him, but imaginary terrors haunt him. Even though the robber or destroyer has not literally overtaken him in his imagination. He has in his imagination. Even though he is still in prosperity, it is as though he has already suffered plundering, is the argument that Eliphaz is presenting. And so he continues then in verse 22. Lo ya'amin shuv mini choshek. He does not believe that he will return from darkness. Ya'amin is from aman, to believe. It's the Hifil imperfect third masculine singular from aman. He does not believe to return from darkness, that he will actually ultimately return from darkness, and he is waited for by the sword. Vitsafu hu ale charib. Here we have tsafu as a cal passive participle from safa, to wait for. So he is waited for of the sword, ale charib. And so looking at verse 22, what the text is saying is he fears, really, that the darkness of misfortune will attack him without any hope of escape, and he fears that someone is waiting to violently attack him. So he's talking about the wicked person inside is not really at peace. And so we continue in verse 23, Eliphaz's case that he's stating. So as we read verse 23, Noded hu lalechem aye. Yada ki nachon beyado yom choshek. Noded hu, he wanders abroad for bread. Where is it? Noded is a cal participle masculine singular from nadad, to wonder. And then we have the question, aye, where is it? And yada, he knows, ki nachon beyado yom choshek. He knows that the day of in his hand, or ready at his hand, is the day of darkness. Yada is the cal perfect third masculine singular from yada, and nachon is your nifal participle masculine singular from kun, to be ready. So he knows that is ready in his hand the day of darkness, that he could experience the day of darkness at any time. So in 23, he fears that poverty will haunt, or the fears of poverty, Eliphaz says, haunt the wicked man, for he knows that the day of misfortune is about to come. He knows he cannot escape. And so in verse 24, it continues, Yava atuhu tsar umetsuka, that is, distress and straits, anguish like straits, overwhelm him or terrify him. Yava atuhu is from ba'at, to terrify. Here we have a PL imperfect third masculine plural, followed by the pronominal suffix in the hu. So distress and anguish will terrify him. Tit kefehu kemelek atid la kidur. That is, they prevail against him as a king that is ready for the battle. Notice here, tit kefehu is from takaf, uh, or from, takaf. It is a imperfect from takaf, to overpower or to behave proudly. That is to overpower. So they overpower against him as a king ready for the battle. Bidur. Here we have tit kefehu from the root takaf, to overpower, and it is an imperfect, a cow imperfect, third feminine plural from takaf, and so followed by the pronominal suffix in the hu. So they prevail against him. Um, Again, third, I should say, it is a cow imperfect, third feminine singular from takaf. Uh, and the two things, sar umetsuka, are brought together in this singular form here in tit kefehu, followed by the pronominal suffix in the hu. So they overpower, would be the idea, him as a king ready for the battle. Looking at verse 24, distress and anguish overwhelm the wicked and prevail against him like the onrush of an attacking king, is the thought here. And so then in verse 25, the text continues. Ki nata el yado, el Shaddai yit gavar. That is, because he has stretched out against God his hand, and against Shaddai the Almighty he has proved, or he has proved himself, or proudly, I should say, against the Almighty he has acted proudly, behaved himself proudly. Nata is the cow perfect, third masculine singular from nata. He has stretched out against God his hand. El, here's the preposition against, and against Shaddai, the Almighty, he has behaved proudly. Yit gavar is a hitpael, imperfect, third masculine singular from gavar. So he has behaved proudly against the Almighty. Then in verse 26, it reads, Yarutz alav bitsavar. He runs against him. He runs against him with a neck. And I think the idea here is like with a stiff neck. Ba'avi gave magina, with the thickness of the bosses of his buckler. Yarutz is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from roots. He runs against him with the neck, like a stiff neck against God. And then ba'avi would be with the thickness, avi meaning thickness, ba meaning with the thickness of the bosses, gave, of his shield or maginav, his bucklers. When we look at this particular verse and we ask, what is he talking about here? The bosses are the convex sides of the shields, the sides turned to the foe, who is here God. And so this is the thought that Job is writing about here. All of this distress comes upon the wicked that he is written about, for he has proudly exalted himself against the Almighty, against the Almighty God, and stretched out his hand in rebellion against him, or his neck, like a stiff neck. He haughtily attacks God with the bosses, that is, the convex sides, as we said, of his shield, turned toward God, who is seen here as his foe. And so then in verse 27, he continues, Ki kisa fanav bechelbo, because he has covered his face with his fatness. Vayas pima ale kasel, and made, pima here means superabundance, made like superabundance. Could possibly be the meaning here. Again, according to, I'm following here a point in the Soncino commentary, borrowing from an Arabic root, which means to fill, like with superabundance. And he is made with superabundance, ale kasil, upon his loins. In other words, what is the thought here? By the way, Ya'as is from Asa. It's the cow imperfect, third masculine singular. So looking at this, the wicked, verse 27, have overindulged and are pictured as gluttonously fat and prosperous. In his fatness, he is thus spiritually insensitive to God and opposes him rather than is obeying him. That's the thought here, I think. And it's interesting when we look at the Hebrew Bible in Deuteronomy 32:15, Psalm 73:7, and Psalm 119:70. We have similar language that needs to be, this text needs to be compared with. So he continues then in verse 28. Vayishkon arim nikhadot. He has dwelt in desolate cities, in cities that are desolate. Notice here, Yishkon is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from Shakan. So, and he dwelt with a vav conversive. So he has dwelt in cities, desolate cities. Nikhadot is the nifal participle, feminine plural, from kachad, to be desolate. So he has dwelt in desolate cities, batim lo yeshavu lo, in houses where they do not dwell to them or in toward them or in them. Notice lo yeshavu is from yashav, the cow imperfect, third comma or third masculine plural from yashav. Here again we have an example of a pei vav verb historically. which elided or dropped out. And so we have compensatory lengthening under the yod from a hirig to a tzeri. Houses which were ready, asher hit adedu legalim, which were prepared for heaps, galim. Atid is the root here. It's a hit pael, perfect, third common plural from atad. So heaps which were prepared for ruins or were ready to become heaps, that is, houses. And so the wicked man has dwelt in desolate cities. I think the thought here is he willingly builds up desolate sites believed to be under the curse of God and not to be rebuilt. This goes back to texts like Joshua 6:26, 1 Kings 16:34. He therefore, or thereby brazenly opposes the decree of God in his own self-confidence. Thus the Hebrew literally here reads, and he has dwelt in desolate cities, in houses where men will not inhabit, which are destined to be heaps. And so he's doing what God has destroyed. He's seeking to rebuild them, which was forbidden. And then in verse 28, we continue, or in verse 29, Lo yeshar velo yakum chelo. He will not be rich, neither shall his wealth be established. Yeshar is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from ashar, and his wealth shall not be established from kum. It's the cow imperfect, third masculine singular of this weak verb. Neither shall their produce below yeteh la'aretz min lam. Notice here, and neither shall their produce, min lam, bend to the ground. So their produce will not bend to the earth to produce. Yeteh is a peinun verb. It's a cow imperfect, third masculine singular from nata. Yenteh becoming yeteh, where the noon has assimilated into the tet by progressive assimilation. So in verse 29, what he's saying here is he will not continue to be rich in spite of the prosperous endeavors of the wicked. His riches will not always continue. They will cease. His prosperity will not continually bend to the earth like stalks of corn heavily laden with grains. But to the contrary, that will not happen. He shall not depart out of darkness. Notice verse 30. Lo yasur mini choshek. He will not depart out of darkness. Yasur is the cow imperfect, third masculine singular from sur. And the flame shall dry up his branches. Notice yo not ko, his branches, te yavesh shall chaved. That is the flame, his branches, the flame shall dry up. Here, te yavesh is the piel, imperfect, third feminine singular from yavash. And by the breath of his mouth he shall go away. V'yasur beruach piv. Yasur is from the root sur. It's a cow imperfect, third masculine singular. So what is the text saying here in verse 30? Although temporarily prosperous, the wicked will not escape calamity, which will come upon him. He and his riches will be destroyed like fire, which devastates the branches of a tree, or as a strong wind, which overthrows a tree or blows chaff away. In like manner, his fate will come. And so in verse 31, it reads, Al Ya'amein, Al Ya'amein Bashav Nit'ah. Let him not trust in his vanity, deceiving, being deceived. Al Ya'amin is from Aman. It is the Hifil imperfect third masculine singular from Aman. Let him not trust in his vanity, Bashavo, deceiving himself. Nit'ah is the nifal participle from ta'ah, to deceive, being deceived. Kishav tiyeh temurato, for vanity shall be his recompense. Notice tiyeh is from haya. It is the third feminine singular from haya. Vanity shall be his recompense. And then, but notice 31. The wicked person is therefore foolish to trust in his wickedness or riches, for the only fruitage of either is vanity. And this is found in Proverbs, same idea, 131. And so the wicked have no stability, is his argument. Below yomo timmale, it shall be accomplished, and literally, and not of his day shall it be accomplished. In other words, he won't live out his lifetime before recompense will come. And Timale is from Malah. It's a nifal imperfect, third feminine singular from Malay. It shall not be fulfilled. That is, not in his days. He won't live out his time. And his branch shall not be leafy. Notice here, Vechi pato lo ra'anana. His branch, hipato, shall not ra'anana, is a palel, perfect, third feminine singular from ra'anan. That is, his branch shall not be leafy. And so what he's saying here in 32, the wicked have no stability. Everything that they count on withers away and disappears like the withering of a branch of a green leafy tree. They will furthermore die before their allotted time. And we've seen that in the previous phrase, not in his days will it be filled out. And so the last three verses then, in verse 33, Yahmos kagefen bisro. He shall shake off his unripe grape as a vine. Literally, he shall shake off as a vine his unripe grape. Vayashlek, and shall cast off kazayet nitzato, shall cast off um, his olives as a flour. In other words, his olive shall be cast off as he shall cast off his flour, we could say, as the olive. And the thought here, let me just say one thing, yashlik is a hifil imperfect, third masculine singular from shalak. He shall cause to cast off his flour as olive, kazayit, uh, nitzato meaning flour. So 33, the wicked, since he never remains in prosperity, is like the grapevine that has grapes which never mature, or like the olive tree which casts off hundreds of its flowers, producing very few berries in proportion to what it throws off. So that's going to be the destiny of the wicked, is what Eliphaz is saying. And then verse 34, Kiadat Chanev Galmud, for the company of the godless shall be desolate, like a desolate woman without children. This is also used of a desolation of the land in other passages. So the company of the godless, Chanev, shall be desolate, and a fire shall consume. The Aish Akhla, the tents of bribery. Achule Shochad, or Shoched, um, of the one who is using bribery. Notice here the company of the godless, Adat Hanef, two nouns in construct, shall be desolate. A fire shall consume. It consumes from achal. It's the noun from. Excuse me. It's a it's a cow, perfect, third feminine singular from achal. A fire shall consume. And I'm thinking we must be looking at a futuristic perfect here. Has consumed or shall consume the tense of bribery. So what he's saying in verse 34 then is, and a fire shall consume the tents of bribery, meaning the homes of the wicked made rich by bribery and perversion of justice will ultimately be divinely judged and made desolate. And so then we conclude this speech by Eliphaz in verse 35. Haro amal v'yalod aven, conceiving like mischief or iniquity, and bringing forth iniquity. Here we have two cal infinitive absolutes, in hara to conceive, in yalad to bear. Two cal infinitive absolutes, and their belly with deceit. U bitnam tachin mirma. Their belly is or prepares deceit. Takin is from kun. It's the cow imperfect, third feminine singular from kun. And so the irony of this verse illustrates the unfruitfulness of the wicked. They are not able to do anything right. Job's society placed a large emphasis upon the family. And so therefore, the thought is the words conceive and give birth are important. The only family that the wicked can conceive and nourish is that of sin and their own undoing. So we've tried to track the thought of Eliphaz as recorded by the author of Job and what he's saying in reply to Job and Job's plea of innocency. And so I'm going to stop there. This brings us to the next movement where Job will give his reply, his fourth reply given to Eliphaz. So thank you for listening.